welcome to Open Square. This broadcast is reaching you live wherever you are in the world from the capital city of Uyo in the land of promise, Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. I am David Chiedu. Now, this is the fifth in a series of regional town halls, which started in the city of Ibadan, Oyo State, southwest Nigeria, earlier this year in January. Open Square is geared toward improving citizens' understanding of the role of the National Assembly, as well as enabling lawmakers get a personal and direct understanding of what their constituents want from them. Open Square is a Daria Media production supported by the MacArthur Foundation, Channels Television, and Radio Now 95.3 FM, Lagos. We're also streaming this event live on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, on Facebook at facebook.com/Daria Media, and on YouTube at Radio Now Studio. Indeed, it's about time, and perhaps as many would say long overdue, that we deepened our democracy by asking the right questions and getting the right answers. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, I will be introducing our panel of legislators from the South states. Welcome back to Open Square. Thank you for staying with us. Joining us as our panelist today from the South region, in the studio here with us, Representative Luke Onofiok of Etinan Nsid Ibom, Nsid Ubium Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. Honorable, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And also joining us, albeit via Zoom, Representatives Aniekan Umana of Abaketi Mekbo, Ika Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, as well as Representative Ekong Nsekak of Ikotek Mene, SCN Ubium, Obot Akara Federal Constituency. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us today on Open Square. Now, it's important to know that these invitations were sent across the South states to the lawmakers and, of course, to CSOs here in the South, across the state. Cross River, Bayelsa, Delta State, Edo State, River State, and the host state, Akwa Ibom State. Now, we have got Nigerians as well who are very concerned about the roles of their lawmakers and also want to get a better understanding of what they do. And we're also joined by Zoom by participants in our remote locations in Bayelsa State, Delta State, as well as Edo State. Thank you all very much for joining us. And as I mentioned earlier, we're being joined by a contingent of civil society, which will also be contributing to this discourse as we consciously seek answers and more ways, as it were, to deepen our democracy. As usual, town hall meetings of this nature are largely incomplete without a question and answer session between the constituents and the legislators, beg your pardon. So there will be time for that at different periods during the course of the conversation. So without further ado, we'll start the discourse by asking the very, very important, pertinent question, which are, what is the role of a legislator? What do you think that they do? And again, what do you expect from your legislators? Feel free to, give your comments. There are microphones at either side of the room. But first of all, what to note is that you need to state your full name, your constituency, and proceed with asking your questions and making your submissions. But the most important thing is to note what the question is, or what the questions are, which is, what is the role of the legislator and what are your expectations from your legislators? Now we're going to start with taking questions from our remote locations, constituents from Bayelsa State, constituents from Delta State, as well as Edo State. Our constituents from Delta State, remote locations. All right, let's come back to the studio. Our host constituents here live in the studio with us. What is the role of a legislator? Do you have an understanding of what your legislators are supposed to do, and what do you expect from them? Anyone here in the studio wants to give us their comment or their response, please step up to the microphone on either side of the room. Remember, state your full name and your constituency, please. Anyone in the studio? Please.
Question is what the role of the legislature and my expectation of the legislature. First and foremost, I think the utmost role of the legislature is the making of laws. The paramount is the making of laws for the good governance of any nation at the high level, federal constituency, and the state, the laws that govern the state. And I think my expectation of the legislature, because it's a representative of the people, is that mandate. What it has to do is that as he goes there or she goes there, is to make the law for the betterment of these people. Wow. The law that will increase the well-being of these people. The law that will take us from where we are to where we're supposed to be, because if we can look critically inward, our country, Nigeria, today, we're kids, what we're reading about the expectation, and at this time, we have not seen that. So my expectation is there at the national level, who will do enough, like I expectation, to make people know that I take off. So,
thank you very much. Anybody else here live in the studio who wants to give us their own thoughts regarding what the role of their legislators are and what they expect from their legislators? Studio? Our remote locations, anyone from there wants to give us their own thoughts? All right, thank you very much for sharing that with us. So you have heard, one of the constituents tell you about what he thinks the role of his legislators are and what to expect from said legislators. Do you agree with his own thinking of what your roles should be as legislators?
Thank you very much, David, and thank you, channels and the support organizations for putting on this town hall meeting, and I'm glad to be here. And I appreciate that you are bringing it to Uyo, and a beautiful city. You're welcome to Uyo. Worldwide, there are three clear functions and roles of a legislator. One is lawmaking, which is, we all know what it is, and then there are processes involved in that lawmaking, starting from when the bill is being sent into the legislature, and first reading, second reading, third reading, and until it is passed into law. I have to jump, maybe after second reading is now committed to the committee, relevant committee, to do an in-depth study and analysis, after which the committee will submit a report, and then the report is being considered in the committee of the whole, and then the committee of the whole will now consider the report at plenary. That's the first responsibility and function of a lawmaker. The other one is oversight. With the power of appropriation that lies with the legislature, that is the powers on how the monies that have been budgeted for in a particular fiscal year to the different ministries, departments, and agencies are expended. It is the responsibility of the legislature over the years to go on oversight function to actually see, one, whether the funds allocated and appropriated to those ministries, departments, and agencies on those budget line items have been utilized. The other one is to ensure that if there are issues of concerns in those ministries, departments, and agencies, or any other organ of government. It is now the responsibility of the legislature to bring in those issues, maybe at the respective committee level, to bring in those issues for consideration by the entire House, assuming if the budgetary allocation for a particular, okay, take for instance, we've been having security challenges. If in a particular fiscal year, take for example 2022 fiscal year, or 2021 fiscal year, that money was budgeted for the armed forces, the security agencies in the country, the police force. And then in the course of the year, the money is not enough. So it is the responsibility of the committee, in this case, House of Representatives Committee on Police Affairs, to interface with the police hierarchy, to interface with the police force, to try to see what areas do you need improvement. And so that in the course of the coming year's appropriation, then the committee will be able to make a push for some adjustment, push for some maybe upward review of budgetary allocation to that particular agency, in this case, in this instance, the police force. Then the third responsibility of the legislator is that of representation. How well are you able to take the issues that bother your constituency, issues that surround your constituent, and in this case in the National Assembly, issues that bother even Nigeria as a whole, because we are representing constituencies, but we speak on issues that bother the entirety of the nation. So how well you are able to articulate and brought these issues to the front burner to get your colleagues to see reasons why they should act in a particular way, and then too, how well you relate with your people back at home, and still under representation. How well you are able to bring, in this case, how well you are able to bring the dividends of democracy back home. And what's that dividends of democracy? We've expanded the interpretation as it concerns the legislature. We've expanded the interpretation of dividends of democracy. We've now gone into, because we need to please our constituent, we've now expanded to what the executive should be doing. And so the constituent is holding us now accountable for what should actually be the functions of the executive. Okay, how well are you able to attract some amenities like roads? How well are you able to bring some amenities like power supply? And now we have pushed a little further how well you are able to bring some what do they call it? Some package in the sense that whether by way of skills acquisition items or skill acquisition center, or some support, kind of economic support to the constituent. And that is the latitude that we have expanded the definition of representation in our climb to. But the most important part of representation is how you are able to attract project in the budget to your constituency, and how well you are able to bring the issues that bother your people to the attention of the government, so that they can be. For instance, if you have a natural disaster in your place, how able are you? Representation demands that you should take this up with on the floor first, and then be able to go to the relevant agency like National Emergency Management Agency, or maybe if it's an erosion crisis, how you are able to go to ecological fund to draw the attention to the plight of your people. So these are the basic responsibilities of a legislator: lawmaking, oversight function, and representation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Luke Onofiok of the Federal Constituency, the Etinan Nsirubium Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. Many thanks for that summation or remark. Here in the studio with us, you've heard what Honorable Onofiok has said, talking about lawmaking, representation, and oversight. Does any of his remark resonate with you? Do you think the lawmakers have done enough of those? as far as your own constituency is concerned, or generally in the entire expanse of the Niger Delta? Anyone here in the studio wants to share their thoughts with us? Please use the microphone. Remember the format. You tell us your full name, and then you tell us your constituency. Kindly use the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Victor David. I represent Vital Partners for Development, a CSO group in Akwa Ibom State. I thank God for Open Square meeting today in South-South, and I appreciate the gentility and the nature of Honorable Onofiok Luke to come in person, at least to speak to us. Sir, standing on existing protocol, I want to look at the functions of the legislator, then ask questions, which I might ask you directly. I'm not asking everybody, I'm asking you because I'm seeing you now. You've mentioned 3 things, and I want to look at the oversight of serving your constituents. Now, democracy has gone beyond what we used to see in time past. It has gone digital. Everything we do, people want to see it, people want to know it, people want to feel what you as a representative have done. And some of us are not privileged to know them. Since we have seen you today, can you, in the at least you're almost 4 years now, or getting to more years now in the House of Rep, what have you, in terms of representing your constituency, done for your people as it has to do with Etinan Federal Constituency and Akwa Ibom State at large? Can you share what you've done with us, the one we know and the one we don't know? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that question. And first, let me start with the primary role of a lawmaker, which is lawmaking. Personally, by the grace of God, and with the support of other of my colleagues, and then with the support of the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, I have been able to have, by the grace of God, 29 bills in the kitty for me. And time will not permit me to enlist them, but a few. First, let me start with the bills that had to do with constitutional alterations. As part of my engagement with my constituents, you know, we are the state, Akwa Ibom State as it is a big maritime state. And then we have been grappling over the years to develop our deep sea port, which successive government in the state have tried to make effort to get that done. But we know that maritime and seaport development is purely under the exclusive legislative list, which leaves the powers to legislate upon it only within the National Assembly. And so the state can only play into that, or the state can only legislate on issues that are in the concurrent legislative list. And so having realized this and having understood the need for the need of a seaport and the benefit that will accrue to the people of Akwa Ibom and the benefit will accrue to the people of Nigeria, not only Akwa Ibom people. Let me start with the benefit it will accrue to Nigeria. I'm taking time to speak on that particular legislation of mine, in the sense that we had a challenge in the Apapa Wharf, which caused a gridlock. And so that has caused a whole lot of challenges for businessmen who have had to evacuate their goods from the seaport. And so it's my belief and understanding that if we have many seaports, then we would have decongested the Apapa seaport and then have other seaports where people can go in there and then do business. And so it is on the understanding of this that I sponsored a bill seeking to delist maritime from exclusive legislative list to have it in the concurrent list so that the state can equally legislate on it, so that my state too, like Akwa Ibom State, can have a deep seaport. And that had, we've been able to have that in the constitutional amendment, and then we are waiting for it to go through. That is part of the area I see that will benefit, because with a deep seaport in Akwa Ibom, you can know the ripple effect, the marginal effect that we are going to have. Business are going to thrive. We are going to have people coming to establish their business here. And then with the industrial park that we have been proposing to do, right from the administration of His Excellency Victor Otta, then carried on by the administration of His Excellency Senator Dr. Godswill Akpabio, and then pursued vigorously by the administration of His Excellency Governor Odongo Beni-Manuel. And so if we give that latitude for the state government to have a deep sea port and play within that maritime sector, you know that the economy of Akwa Ibom State will boom. That was my thinking as a legislator, trying to do something to impact on my own constituency as a state, and Etinan, Nserubium Federal Constituency is a component unit of Akwa Ibom State. So whatsoever will benefit the state at large will benefit my federal constituency. The other one is the issue of railway. Now, we've seen that we've had challenges with road transportation because of some situations of deplorable road in the country. And so other clients, we have seen railway work. Even the deep sea port we are talking about. What will complement the deep sea port will be railway. And so railway is under the exclusive legislative list. And I know the benefit of a railway as a complement to the deep sea port, Ibom Deep Sea Port in Akwa Ibom. And so I sponsored a bill to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to delist railway from exclusive legislative list to a concurrent list so that the state can legislate on it, and so that the state government in the nearest future, when we have finances, we can have a railway line to help us evacuate our goods from the deep sea port, then take it through maybe Korobasi or Eked or Oron, and then probably take it to, even the people in Aba area would prefer to use the deep sea port here, and then having the complement of the railway to evacuate their goods to those places. The other one has been in the area of administration of justice. You know that a society without law and order is chaos. And then what makes for law and order is an effective and efficient justice administration system. We have a challenge in our judiciary today. And so I saw some of the challenges in our judiciary. One of them is the issue of the deteriorating welfare and working conditions of our judicial officers. First, let's take the issue of retirement age. Now, before, as it is presently in the Constitution, it was only the Supreme Court. The law says that a justice of the Supreme Court can retire, Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal rather, may retire at the age of 65, but shall retire at the age of 70. But that was not the case with the judge of the Federal High Court and a judge of the State High Court. And so there was need for uniformity to try to see how the justices of the Supreme Court, the justices of the Court of Appeal, the judges of the Federal High Court, the judges of National Industrial Court, the Grand Caddies and the Caddies of Sharia Court of Appeal, and then the judges of the Customary Court of Appeal, and the judges of the State High Court can retire at the same time. And then so they all shall retire at the age of 70.
Okay, Honorable, we have to go on a break. We have to go on a break, Honorable. This is still Open Square on Radio Now, 95.3 FM Lagos, brought to you by Daria Media, supported by the MacArthur Foundation and Channels Television. You just heard from Honorable Luke Onofiok of the Nsiribom Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, and he has given us his own remark in response to the question that was asked him by one of the representatives here, or one of the constituents here in the studio live. We've got constituents as well in our remote locations. We're going to take their comments very shortly. And we've also got Representative Anieka Numana of Abaketi Mekpo, Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, as well as Representative Ekong Sigak of Ikotek Bene Estenibium Federal Constituency. We're going to take comments from them when we come back. This is Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media in partnership with MacArthur Foundation, Channels Television. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media, supported by MacArthur Foundation and Channels Television. We're streaming this event live on our social media platforms. This is on facebook.com/Daria Media and on YouTube at Radio Now Studios. And you can also listen live via Radio Now. That's Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I am David Chiedu. And earlier, we heard from our representative in the studio here with us, Honorable Luke Onofioke. He gave us quite the insightful remark or response to one of the questions posed at him by the constituents in the studio. And we're going to be hearing from other legislators who will be joining us remotely or via virtual platforms very, very shortly. But let's turn to our other remote locations in Bayelsa State, Delta State, and Edo State, where we have constituents standing by to ask questions, their own questions, and to engage with their lawmakers. The question earlier was, what is the role of your legislator, and what do you expect from them? Earlier, Honorable Luke gave us his thoughts, summarizing most of it inside the three cardinal responsibilities, which is lawmaking. He also spoke about oversight, and then spoke about legislation, as he were. So let's now go to our remote locations in Bayelsa State. He, spoke very, very extensively, and now we want to hear from you. Give us your own thoughts about what he said, and perhaps what you understand to be the role of the lawmaker. If we can have our constituents in those remote locations kindly send your thoughts across. The format, again, is tell us your full name, that's your first name and last name, and then, of course, tell us your constituency so that we can hear from you. The portal is now open, our remote locations in Bayelsa State, in Delta State, as well as in Edo State. Do we have our constituents there?
Hello, can you hear me from Yenegua?
All right, let's bring it back to the studio here.
Hello.
We heard from Honorable Luke earlier when he spoke. Any further comments regarding what he spoke about, and perhaps some other pressing concerns affecting the Niger Delta, or affecting your own constituency, as it were? We're still taking comments from both within and without. Let's have your comments. Anybody here live in the studio? Please use the microphone. Just tell us your full name and then tell us your constituency. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Are you hearing me from Yenegua here? My name is Alagua Morris, and as far as this event is concerned, I wish to be identified as a constituent of the Southern Ijaw Federal Constituency.
Members who have this known and noticed for doing good. What I'm saying that when it comes to area of oversight functions, like you may rightly mention about the issue of deep sea port and other areas he has contributed to make sure that we have the right thinking and right formation at the end. We are still haunted by bad road into Akwa Ibom State, and we all know we are like the end of the bar. Without Aba Iko Road being accessible, most people cannot get out of this state. A distance, I can remember when I was in school, we used to make Uyo Port Harcourt under 1 hour, but Uyo Port Harcourt is something you make under 4 hours if you are lucky. So I want to find out what the oversight functions of our legislators, and is there no kind of coalition? Because I want to believe that the lawmakers from Imo State, Abia State, are equally having the same problem with us in Akwa Ibom State. Is there no way that you can liaise with the ones there, with you people here, 9 of you here, and how many of them there, to see that we are at least be able to have a federal road that takes us out of Akwa Ibom State? That's number one. Number two, the issue of rail. In Lagos, we now have what the village called monorail. And monorail could be the best for Akwa Ibom if we could have one. But I don't think that is in the making. But meanwhile, still on the oversight functions, most of our, like I can say, I represent an NGO called Here and Now Initiative. What I do most times, I go around my local constituency to see what they feel, to feel their they feel their impact on, I mean, their take on their different, from House of Reps, House of Assembly, House of Senate. Most times, the percentage is always below 40%, 30%, you know, because you don't see anything that reflects the presence of or that these people came out of this place. They came out from this place and left to their headquarters. They came from this place, they only reach out to those that perhaps one way or the other. But the general thing that would favor the generality of the people are not always, you know, mentioned. If you ask them, what do you experience here? Since 2021? What is the new thing here? They say, nothing. What of your school? I still leaking roofs. What of your water? We are still drinking from a borehole. Even the solar borehole provided for us have not been activated. We are not. So those are the kind of feeling that we get from the community that we visited. And often I was looking for a daylight to say that I would be able to say that I will be able to at least meet, like Honorable Nofio and said, when these other functions are mentioned, things that affect us personally, like water, like road, like schools, like medical issues, are they not part of what should be paramount in your oversight functions? Not you as president, but you as our representatives in your oversight functions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Honorable Luke, you want to respond to what he just said?
Yeah, thank you, David. And okay, the two Davids, the David that has just made a presentation and then the David, the presenter. But before I attempt that, permit me to, because while I was reading out a few things that we've been able to do in the last but one question that was posed to us, I probably did not have enough time to be able to exhaust it. Now, nobody in the legislature, you have to work in consonance with your colleagues to get things done. And so under lawmaking too, you were asking my personal contribution. I have joined with other 359 colleagues of mine and then 109 senators to effect changes in our electoral system. We clamored for an electoral act that will accommodate the yearnings of Nigeria, that would make for issues of electronic transfer, and then that would legitimize the use of electronic in the political process, especially at the level of accreditation. And so that is part of what I have been able to join with other of my colleagues to contribute in lawmaking. Now, for over a decade and a half, we've been grappling with the petroleum industry bill, seeking to have a legislation that will open up our oil and gas industry, which is the mainstay of our own economy, up for investment. And then by the grace of God, with the magnanimity, by the grace of God, with the support of Nigerians, and then with input from experts, and then agitations and advocacies from Nigeria, we've been able to pass the Petroleum Industry Act. Now, we know the effect of clarity in tax and taxation in any economy. Now, I have joined other of my colleagues to pass the Finance Act, which Finance Act 2019, 2020, and 2021. And those pieces of legislations have been able to effect some amendments in 13 tax laws. 13 laws in this country, like the Capital Gain Tax Act, the Personal Income Tax Act, the Company Income Tax Act, the Stamp Duties Act, and then a Custom Excise Tariffs Act. So this makes for clarity in our tax system to engender investors' confidence in our economy. We know what that means. And we have been able to try the best that we can to bring our tax system in line with best international practices. That is part of the things we have done under legislation in conjunction with other of my colleagues. Then we have caused an amendment in the Company and Allied Matters Act. Part of our effort to have an investment, to get our investors to come in, create an enabling environment to get our investors to come in here. Now, what makes for a good business environment, which is what we have been looking for in Nigeria, is security, sound legislation, and then solid infrastructure.
And so on our own part, we've tried as a legislature to try to see at the 9th Assembly, because you can't speak in isolation. All what you have to do, no matter how good your bill is as an individual, you need the support and the cooperation of your colleagues. And so even if you have a personal or a private member bill, when once it passes, it is the effort of the 360 members of the House of Representatives. You are only having the benefit of being a lead sponsor. Now, sir, on the issue of representation, still, because I did not have opportunity to speak there, I brought before the House of Representatives a concern about the Aluminium Smelter Company in Ikorobasi. How we have allowed that company to be the way it is. And I know that it has, the Supreme Court had made a pronouncement on it. That matter is, the Bureau of Public Enterprise has been seeing a way to try to resolve that matter. I brought that matter up for attention on the floor of the House of Representatives. And I'm still sending some people to BPE to try to see how the issues between Rusals and the other company could be resolved, so that our aluminum smelter company can go up on stream, not only for the production of aluminum bigot alone, but you will be surprised to know that there was a power plant in Alscon that could give power to the surrounding community. If we get Alscon working again, and then that power plant working again, then we are going to solve the issue of power challenge that we have. Then that leads me to the next issue which you raised, which is still part of representation that we have in concert with other of my colleagues from Akwa Ibom State, 3 senators in the senator, 3 senators from the state, and then the 10 of us in the House of Representatives. We have drawn the attention of federal government to the deplorable condition of our road, especially Itu, Odukpani, Calabar Road, with a spur from Nkamitam straight through to Okoita, then taking you to Biakpan in Ikorekpene local government. Now, we thank God and appreciate the president who awarded the contract, and we've seen a level minimal work on the side between Itu, Idide, getting to Ikorekpene, but it's just a minimal work, very minimal. And so we have drawn the attention over and over again that we are going to be cut off. The same thing, we have drawn the attention of the federal government to the deplorable condition of the road. That is part of representation. Bringing to the attention of government our challenges as it concerns road between Ikoromo Esien and Nwa in Abia State. And so we have been doing that in concert with other, in consonance with other of our colleagues. And you've spoken about concerns in communities. We've talked about dilapidated schools. You've talked about some lack of water. And some of those projects
Honorable, we have to take some comments from our remote locations. Thank you very much, Honorable Luke Onofiok. Now let's go to our remote locations in other parts of the South. We have them at Delta State, Edo State, and Bayelsa State. But we're going to start with Bayelsa State. Let's get some comments from Bayelsa, our constituents at Bayelsa State. If you could kindly just tell us what you have in mind, or what your thoughts are regarding all that Honorable Luke has said. Remember your full name, and then, of course, your constituency. Bayelsa, constituents, thank you very much.
Hello, good morning. My name is Alagwa Morris, and as far as this program is concerned, I want to identify myself as a constituent of Southern Niger Federal Constituency. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk on our lawmaking and the lawmakers' representatives. In a democracy, those representing us are there. The only time we as a people will represent ourselves is during protest, which Nigeria has denied our people. Protest is the only time in a democracy the people will take it upon themselves to represent themselves fully, to tell government what is bothering them. But Nigeria has denied people the right to protest. Having said that, let me say the Niger Delta is the most researched region in Nigeria, with plethora of literature here and there. Now, on the 8th of September 2008, or thereabout, former President Goodluck Jonathan, then as a vice president, inaugurated a 44-member committee on the technical committee on the Niger Delta. They came up with a recommendation which Goodluck Jonathan, during the inauguration, said the federal government will not treat with levity. Now, instead of implementing the recommendations, only the amnesty program, which is PAP, was accepted and being implemented. Whether it is implemented 100% or not, I'm not aware of that. But all the other recommendations are just jettisoned. We have federal roads that have been in the drawing board for over 40 years. And today, the state government, led by Doye Diri, is the very one trying to push these federal roads. And what is it that our federal representatives are doing as far as these roads are concerned? And when we talk about the issues of water, basic amenities in our communities, does it mean that the Federal Ministry of Water Resources has nothing to do in the Niger Delta, where we have water everywhere and not good enough for us to drink, especially because of oil industry-induced pollution? Part of the recommendation of the Technical Committee of the Niger Delta was shoreline protection, end of gas flaring, cleanup of oil spill-impacted sites. What is it that our representatives are doing in the area of coastal erosion that have ravaged our communities? Oil spill sites not cleaned up, as it is ongoing in Ogoni, which ought to be in all parts of the Niger Delta. And then our people are still in supposedly pristine glory. The area that is producing the wealth of the nation, we still are very, very backward. And the literature are there. The recommendations are there. It is unfortunate that we are not seeing this happening. Rather, we see a situation whereby our representatives come to buy motorcycle, a canoe, a bicycle, and so-called individual empowerment instead of the common general good for our people. If the representatives are there for lawmaking, oversight function, and representation, for me, they have not represented enough. They need to do more to ensure that the lacuna is being bridged. Let me stop here for other participants here or elsewhere to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a constituent member from Bayelsa State, and he's asking his lawmakers what needs to be done to better their lives. Essentially, in summary, what he spoke about was the deplorable state of the environment of the Niger Delta in general, because once that is polluted, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and he spoke about some other issues. Yes, we have some more comments, but before we go to those other comments, we're going to right now at this moment acknowledge the presence of Representative Anieka Numana of Abaketi Mekpo, Ika Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. Honorable, thank you for joining us. Let's go to Benin, another remote location, to tell us exactly how they feel regarding their own experience with representation by their lawmakers. Yes, let's go to Benin now. Constituents, members from Benin, let's have your thoughts. Tell us your full name and your constituency.
Okay,
all right,
good morning.
We'll come back.
I'm Melody Omoza from Oredo Federal Constituency, and I represent a network for the advancement of people with disabilities. I want to, in my question, accentuate the remark made by the caller from Bayelsa, to say that even though we recognize that lawmakers have oversight as part of their responsibility, it does appear that in the main they have abdicated the responsibility of lawmaking to the executive arms. We see fewer resolutions, we see fewer laws moved by lawmakers at the National Assembly, and most of the laws passed comes by way of executive bill. I do not think that is good enough. We have a situation where the National Assembly, 469 of them said it was an oversight that when they passed the Electoral Act, the issue of statutory representation skipped 469 lawmakers, including their legislative aid, even when the House of Rep passed, the House of Senate passed, and they have to harmonize. It took the president more than a month to assent. They did not know until primaries have started to note that the issue of statutory representation was not there, and they quickly amended and wanted the president to assent to it. I think this is not good for our democracy, for the process of lawmaking. We are seeing repeatedly, like I said, that executive arm now wants to make laws, so much so that the law that was signed by Mr. President, he will come back to say that that it should be amended. And thank God for the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court that said you cannot appropriate and reprobate. We are part of that process. We want a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call, and I'm asking, what will lawmakers do, given the less than 1 year that they have? What will they do to give the people they represent better representation, not giving themselves to giving individual assistance to their constituent members, and not pursuing what is in the budget that will benefit the generality of the people by way of amenities, by way of infrastructure to these communities, but rather they just embark on individual assistance to their constituent member and not looking at the budget and pursuing it through. Thank you.
So we are going to turn our attention right now to Honorable Aniekan Umana of Abaketi Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. Honorable, are you with us?
Hello. Yes, good morning.
To some of the concerns of the members who've spoken about their concerns regarding the region with regards to what the legislators have been doing so far. As a matter of fact, the center of it all is inadequate representation. So can you kindly respond to that?
Yeah, you're breaking. I'm not sure I can hear you very well.
I said the constituency member who just spoke from Benin City, as well as the one from Bayelsa State, have cited more or less the same concern, which is inadequate representation of the people of the Niger Delta by their law.
I think there's a connection issue. You hold on, let me get close to a more audible TV so I can hear you.
Okay. What I said, can you hear me, Honorable? Honorable, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you ask the question again?
Can you hear me, Honorable? Honorable, can you hear me? All right, great. So the question...
Yeah, can you ask the question again?
Yes. The question he was asking, or his remarks rather, were centered around inadequate representation, by the lawmakers in the Niger Delta region. The previous speaker spoke about the deplorable condition of the environment in the Niger Delta, seeing as the region is rich with natural resources and, has provided for the country in more ways than one from its resources. But still, they still are way behind in terms of development and all the other things, the other necessities, as it were, for a developing region. Can you kindly respond to these comments? Honorable Umana, are you there?
Well, I had only two things from you: developing regions and so on. I didn't get the other point.
Inadequate representation, Honorable. Inadequate
yes, I am here.
Yes, inadequate representation by the lawmakers. Did you hear that?
Oh, no. I do not agree with you on the issue of inadequate representation. I completely think that the members of the National Assembly are doing their best in terms of legislation. I did hear someone talk about not much being done. I don't agree, because on record, we have over 2,000 bills in the current Assembly. Over 2,000 bills in the current Assembly, bordering on several issues and several subjects and issues affecting the various areas of our livelihood in the nation. So the issue of inadequate representation is not there. I hear people talking about things that are exactly within the executive realm. That is not the duty per se of the legislators. Like my brother there said earlier, and we look clearly, the job of the lawmakers is lawmaking, oversight, and of course what we may like to put in our parlance now, constituency outreach. And as long as we are there, our duty is to make sure that we make laws for the good governance of the nation, for the good governance of the nation. And we must continue to look at these issues, review as much as possible, bring up issues that will make the country better for our people. So clearly, I do not agree that the lawmakers are not doing their best. People are working and doing what they can. But it's also not easy to get these things through as simple as people think they can. It's not a simple process. The baking of a law, the baking of a bill from the start up to the end, sometimes can take a process of up to 4 years. Sometimes it can be quicker, depending on the expediency and, of course, all of the gymnastics of lawmaking that people may not understand from the outside. But I want to say that lawmakers, to the best of my knowledge and ability, are doing the best they can. Yes, you cannot say 100% yes, but I want to say we're doing the very best. Someone talks about roads and all of that. The business of the lawmaker is to appropriate funds to the various MDAs and ensure that these funds get to them. The matter of releases and implementation situates within the executive, clearly with the executive, and that is how it works. If, for instance, people talked about roads, happily you are in Akwa Ibom and you can see the impact of good governance in Akwa Ibom, how good our roads are in that state. Most of the roads that you find that are not very interesting may be federal roads. And the state government has done its best to ensure that the people of the area live well. So coming to that, if the National Assembly has appropriated funds, for instance, for the dualization of Aba, Ikot Ekpene, Calabar Road, or for instance, the first phase of the dualization of Ikot Ekpene, Calabar, Odupani, Calabar Federal Highway, and no money was released, Julius Berger was mobilized to go to the site, and then a 54 billion contract, and in the first instance, only 7 billion was released, including Bill 1. How do you expect that road to be done? They will only go and dance around earthworks, mobilize the site and demobilize. So many things come to play in the process. And Nigerians must understand clearly that the job of the legislature is not about release of funds. It's not about implementation. It's not about constructing roads.
Honorable Omana,
about ensuring that
Honorable Omana, we will continue with your comments very shortly, but we have to go on a break. Honorable Omana, we will continue with your comments very shortly. This is Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media, supported by MacArthur Foundation and Channels Television. We're here in Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Do stay close. We would go on a short break, and when we come back, the conversation continues. We have CSOs who are present, and they're going to be talking to us very shortly. I am David Chiedu. Stay tuned. This is Open Square. You're still watching Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media, in collaboration with the MacArthur Foundation, as well as Channels Television, here in the capital city of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. I am David Chiedu, and we're streaming this event live via Radio Now 95.3 FM in Lagos, as well as on Facebook.com/Daria Media, and as well on YouTube at Radio Now Studios. We have in the studio with us here CSOs and constituency members from the host city, talking about Uyo, as well as the neighboring cities of Calabar and Port Harcourt from River State and Cross River State, respectively. In our remote locations, we've got people from Benin City, that's in Edo State. We've got from Bayelsa State, from Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, as well as Asaba and Warri in Delta State. And also joining us via Zoom earlier was Honorable Aniekan Umana of Abakete Mekpo, Ika Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, and as well gracing us with his presence here in the studio live is Honorable Luke Norfolk of Etinan Sidibom Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. We're going to turn our attention back to you, Honorable Omana. Earlier, you were giving us your response to one of the concerns of the constituency members in Benin City and Bayelsa State, respectively. If you could kindly continue with your thoughts, Honorable.
Hello?
Honorable Omana, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, kindly go on with your thoughts.
Yes. I'd like to, before the break, I was saying that the job of the legislature is to appropriate funds for the executive. And having done that in the current assembly, it is now our duty to oversight. But the issue of release of funds and implementation rests squarely within the executive. And that is how it works. There's always this misplaced thinking. I'm sorry to use the word that the legislature, as it were, people will say lawmakers are not doing this, they have not done this road, they've not done that. It doesn't work that way. Nigerians must stand educated to understand that the lawmaker has no budgets to operate. He has no funds to release. His only job is to ensure that the budgetary provisions are made, and he has the only business he has where necessary, and of course in the relevant committees that he is in, and the MDAs as oversighting, is to look whether they have done these things or not. So people must situate the responsibilities of the lawmaker very clearly and also understand how they operate. But I must thank Zara Media and all your partners for coming to Akwa Ibom State, and I'm sure you are enjoying yourself there in a state where you can see infrastructure works, where government is working, where the governor is working for the people. And I think Nigeria should copy this model to ensure that the country is good for everyone.
Thank you very much, Honorable Omana. Let's turn our attention back to Benin City, get some more constituents there or CSOs to talk to us about their own concerns regarding the relationship between them or the region, as it were, and their lawmakers. Benin City. Remember, tell us your full name and your constituency.
Not hearing you.
Constituents from Benin. Okay, constituents from Warri. Constituents from Warri. Can you hear us? Warri in Delta State. Constituents from Warri. Can you hear us? Let's have your own concerns.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. This is Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media.
Okay, now,
and we can hear you. Just carry on with your thoughts.
Two things. One is to make the point that the fact that a lot of legislators now, there's a high turnover of legislators, shows people are not happy with the way things are going within the National Assembly in terms of representation, in terms of mainstreaming the interest of our country. I think that's the point the honorable members have not agreed with. In terms of representing the people, first and foremost, legislators are representatives of their constituents. We have not seen that being achieved. We have not seen proper representation. So I think that what we are getting in terms of a high turnover is as a direct consequence of the failure of legislators. The second point, just to make quickly, is the fact that the National Assembly is more often than not seen as a drain pipe to our national treasury. The idea of an opaque envelope budget, where you just allocate 150 billion or 180 billion to yourselves without oversight. You cannot appropriate and reprobate. You cannot be the one who fixed it, and nobody can. There's no oversight over how those funds that you are allocated to yourself, 469 members and their aides, having as much as maybe a tenth of our national budget. It's something that is representable. So I think that the National Assembly members, when they go to National Assembly, they should represent us, not themselves. That's the point we'd like to make.
All right. Thank you very much. Honorable Omana, we're going to let you respond to this one.
Thank you so much. My name is Doris Ogbaifon. I am speaking as a development worker in Edo State. I have practically worked in almost the 18 local governments in the state. And I must also express my sadness today that none of our lawmakers was able to be present in this epoch occasion. But what I want to say, sir, you mentioned that the court duty of a representative at the National Assembly is to ensure that budgetary provisions are made. Is it budgetary provisions are made to you guys' pocket or for the betterment of the general society? Because you can understand or you agree with me, because I'm speaking from Edo State and I want to tell you issues.
Okay, all right. I think we got the crux of the matter. Honorable Amana, we're going to let you respond to that. The previous speaker from Warri spoke about the same issue, which is inadequate representation, as well as, more or less saying that the National Assembly has been a conduit pipe, or in his words, a drainage pipe for funds, passing to where nobody knows where they're passing to. And then the, the last speaker spoke about the same thing, making budgetary allocations and whether or not it's actually going to the constituents or it's actually going to the lawmaker. So, Honorable Amana, kindly respond to the comments.
Yes, thank you very much. I will respond very clearly. I think that there is poverty of knowledge, with due respect, on the issue of the national funding, national budget, and as it affects the National Assembly and other arms of government. Most times, this has been a recurring decimal, and quite frankly, perhaps maybe
Honorable Amana, can you hear us?
The nation's budget of over 17 trillion. The nation's budget for this year, for instance, is over 17 trillion. Then go and find out what is the budget of the National Assembly. It's a 120-something billion. And inside this amount is the National Assembly Service Commission, the National Institute for Legislative Studies, the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the management of the National Assembly, all engulfed in this. The judiciary, for instance, is 120 billion. Take this amount out of these two arms of government, out of over 17.8 billion, and a trillion rather. And then you will now understand where Nigeria money resides. It is not about accusing the National Assembly, no. The member of the National Assembly is just like any other worker. He earns his salary and he has his office running costs. It is a very normal thing. Just like you go to ministries. The member of the National Assembly has only one vehicle, one official committee working vehicle for the 4 years that he remains there. And in the case of the House of Representatives, a Toyota Camry. And that, but if you get to the ministry, there are people who have drivers, aides, backup vehicles, pilots, and all of those. So you have to situate these things properly. So the accusations made to the National Assembly is misplaced, and Nigerians must be educated on this. It's totally misplaced. When you look at the national budget and look at the allocation, the percentage of allocation to the National Assembly, the totality of the 360 federal constituencies and the 109 senatorial districts representing the people, and this is the closest of the national government to the people. And then people sit down and make accusations that they do not understand. For me, those things are unfounded. The expense structure that a member or a senator runs in a month, whether by way of constituency intervention, outreach, or advocacy, even travel and tours and so on, it takes the grace of God. It takes the grace of God for you to meet up that cost. But people don't understand how it works. So the only way to understand is to look at the totality of the national budget of Nigeria. And I gave you what it is. And then you now look at the budget of the other two arms, the legislature and the judiciary. Minus that from the totality, and then you also understand now where the responsibility situates and where the highest money is spent. So Nigerians must be educated on this. Someone did talk about the high turnover and all of those. It's not because those legislators are not good. There are a lot of peculiarities involved in our local politics, and the bucolining of our political process is also responsible. We have issues like local zoning that kicks members away, because sometimes you have a constituency of 3 local governments, and then various local governments rotate these seats according to their local peculiarities. Like in my constituency, we have 3 local governments. In some constituencies, they have 2 local governments, some very big ones, some 4. There are some that have 5. And then the political stakeholders of other local governments also want to have a feel of that position, and that brings up the issue of local zoning. That is always the crux of it. And then, of course, when you also have there are various political issues that come to play that creates a high turnover. Not that members are not performing or they are not working. How do you measure performance? How do you measure performance? You can count and say the number of bills and motions and so on. You can make as many motions as you like. The resolutions are communicated to the executive. The implementation is the duty of the executive. The lawmaker would have performed or executed his responsibility. But he also has a duty to come back and brief his people on what he has done, so they can understand and relate with him in this direction. Most of us in Akwa Ibom, we have done that. I have personally briefed my people. I'm not talking about the outreach and empowerment. I'm talking about sitting down with our people to find out what their needs are.
Okay.
And then we develop
to find out what their needs are, Honorable Amana, let's pause your thoughts there for a second. Honorable Amana, let's pause your thoughts there for a second. Honorable Luke Onofiok, now let's come back to you. You earlier gave us a very robust introduction regarding the job description, so to speak, of the legislators, and you also responded to some concerns of the constituents here in the studio and otherwise. The last 2 speakers from Benin City and Warri respectively, you heard some of their concerns. If you could kindly quickly respond to those so that we can move on.
Thank you. Let me thank my colleague for coming online. I was almost feeling that, I'm going to be the one sitting here taking all the hate when we were supposed to have a share of the challenges and then make profess solutions for way forward. I appreciate him, and I know others are going to do same. Now let me start with Doris from remote location. I want to beg to differ with her proposition that budgetary provisions are for the pocket of the legislature. No, the budget provisions are for national development. Statutory transfer of 120 billion to the judiciary is not to the pocket of a member of the House of Representatives. Statutory transfer to TED Fund and to UBEC is not a allocation to the pocket of a member of the National Assembly. The statutory transfer to the National Human Rights Commission is not appropriation or allocation to the pocket of the member of the National Assembly. Statutory transfer for different health institutions, the federal medical centers across the country, is not allocation to the budget of members of the National Assembly. Statutory transfer to agricultural institutions is not an allocation to the pocket of members of the National Assembly. They are all allocations for national development. Funds meant for the police, allocation meant for the armed forces to combat insecurity are not allocations to the pocket of the members of the National Assembly. Salaries and wages paid to civil servants in recurrent component of the budget or appropriation act is not allocation to the pocket of the members of the House of Assembly or National Assembly. It is for the betterment and welfare of Nigerians, and for the general and overall development of Nigeria. The other one is on the issue of, I think, a constituent from Warri. I want to say that the National Assembly, again, is not a drain pipe. And then it is not, when he made mention of figures, this is an age that data is king, statistics is king. If we must speak with facts and figures. There is never a time the National Assembly has appropriated for itself a sum of 160 billion or 150 billion. So that is the budget of the National Assembly is about, I think, about 120. I might not know the fraction over 20, but I think it's about 120 something billion. Never have we appropriated 160 or 150 billion as claimed. Now on the issue of high turnover, I think if we will not be honest with ourselves if we don't agree on the dynamics that are involved in politics. Now, what is the baseline for, the baseline process for emergence as a member? It starts with party politics. We've cried over time with internal democracy in our party. And so, the case here, just like my colleagues have said, I don't want to belabor that point any longer. It is more of internal and dynamics and the peculiarity of the constituency. Like sitting down here, there is nothing stopping me from having to have sought for a second term in the House of Representatives. But I have in my place an understanding that it is not, this was my thinking, that it is not the place of my federal constituency to contest again for, the place of my local government, Nsorubum, to go for a second term in the House of Representatives. There was a case for Nsorubum by reason of rotation. But my party said, oh, there's something like concession. Let's do a concession 13. And I'm a party man. I abide by the party's decision. And so the internal democracy of party is the issue, not the dissatisfaction of constituents. And again, look at, again, that's why I don't complain too much, because we probably had an opportunity. A whole lot of people said, oh, you don't have to say this. I am one person that always would say what is the truth. We find a way, directly or indirectly, that has come up, which I would address, the issue of the Electoral Act. It was just a matter of interpretation and semantics. And that provision says that it is only democratically elected. And the understanding of the legislature as at then, was, okay, it should not be people who are holding appointive offices. It should be those who are, in our own understanding of democratically elected delegate, where, okay, party officials are democratically elected. Members of the National Assembly are democratically elected. Members of the House of Assembly are democratically elected. The councillors in the ward are democratically elected. That was the understanding of the legislature. It's not that something skipped. There's no way we could have that provision would have skipped I would say the eagle eye of about eagle eye of 109 of us, and then 109 senators and 360 members of the House of Representatives. It's just a matter of interpretation of that clause. So when people, for reason best known to them, decided to come with that interpretation, that was why we had to come back and said, okay, statutory, and to try to put that word statutory. So I believe I want to plead with you to give me time to address these issues, because we need to. Not, I'm craving your indulgence, please, right, because these are issues that we must address. So it is not a matter of whether they are dissatisfied with their representation. Those who are dissatisfied with people's representation, they've made comment and they have allowed the general election to determine that. That would reflect at the general election level. Then the issue that was raised by the constituents from Bayelsa. Yes, it's right. There seems to be some level of gagging for the civil society in protesting. Yeah. But we've had a few people protest. When the National Assembly did not give, during the constitutional amendment, when the gender bills did not pass through, we had women coming to the National Assembly, leading a protest and making their position known. And because of that protest, the House of Representatives quickly took a decision to rescind their decision on those gender bills. That was an opportunity for protest. And we have had, though people don't want to talk about it, we had a protest. We had the NSAS protest that went through the country. The National Assembly was on the part of it. We sat back and then listened, specifically the House of Representatives, under the leadership of Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. We took the concerns of those who led the NSAS protest. One is the issue of police brutality. Two, the issue of accountability and transparency in policing. And those concerns are what have been reflected in the amended Police Act to accommodate the issues that were raised during the NSAS protest, like incorporating the fundamental right of suspect under police custody. That has reflected in the amended Police Act that we have. That means that we did not only allow Nigerians to take the laws into their hands, but we had the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives had to go into collaboration with the Nigerian Bar Association, with the security agencies, with the National Human Rights Commission to come with a position to be able to assuage or address the issues of concern. Sir, on the issue of Niger Delta, for me personally, part of the things that has been disturbing is how we could not get at least 5% of profit of oil companies for the what do they call it? For the host communities. You agree with me? In the House of Representatives, we passed our own, it was 5%. And then Senate insisted on their own position. And then there is a process in lawmaking when you have different positions in a bicameral legislature. This is part of the things that our constituents must understand. In a bicameral legislature like we have, the Senate and the House of Representatives, when you have different versions of the bills passed, they will set up a conference committee where the House would nominate their members, the Senate would nominate their members to go on a conferencing to agree on and find a common position on the positions or the provisions of the law, provisions of the bill passed that are at variance. And so it was during this conferencing that one way along the other that we might not have been able to tell. I was not a member of that committee, so I cannot be able to debate. For me, it is sad that I could not be able, or we could not be able, let's say we collectively, could not be able to push through to have that 5%. So please, this is one of the challenges. When you are asking us questions, give us the latitude for us to be able to explain to an understanding. So, sir, on this issue of coastal erosion,
you're going to have time
with due respect, David, with due respect, sir, you know, the same way.
Honorable, we're going to give you time. You would have time to talk and express yourself and respond to the constituents here in the studio and in our remote location. We'll come back to you, Honorable, sir. By also our remote location, we know that you have some more comments that you want to throw at the lawmakers, both Honorable Luke here and Honorable Umana, who's virtual. Let's have your thoughts, please. By also. Bayelsa State, our remote location there.
Yes, we are ready for you.
Yes, tell us your full name.
My name is Dr. Tareda Joey. I am from Yenagua Constituency 2 in Bayelsa State. I just have some few points to raise, and I'm sure you will make efforts to address them. Number one, why are constituency projects being executed in the constituency without referring to the constituents on the choice of projects? And we can see that most of the projects are very panicky in conception and ad hoc in implementation, and they are not the will of the people. So why should projects like that be selected based on maybe the choice of the representative without listening to the people? Then I want to also add that the question of divestment is very prominent now in the Niger Delta. And it appears our legislators are not doing anything to contain the situation. If you look at Warri now, Warri is almost a ghost community or a ghost town and so on. Then we can now see that oil companies are gradually moving away from Warri. So what are they plowing back? Are they also leaving the destroyed environment for the people? Or what can we do about it? The legislators, you have to do something, and you must also ensure that oil blocks are not going with those that are divesting. Oil blocks should be left for the communities to make use of. Then I want to also add what a professor in 2000 plus said, that is advising federal government to go into serious exploitation of the Niger Delta, that oil resources will be exhausted very soon. And so the question now we are asking is, who will bear the ecological debt when the oil resources are no more? Just like what is happening in Olebri. Olebri is an empty community now because oil is no more there in some of the wells. So what can we do about it? Then lastly, I want to put it to you that some of the projects that you so claim that you have maybe given to some of the constituents. If you go to Sabama, like the Sabama Motor Park, there is a toilet that is built there. The name of the contractor is from Abuja, and the name of the, in fact, the title of the contract though is a toilet, but we found out that Such projects are supposed to be executed by the people. If the assembly or the reps are really liaising with their constituents, how can even ordinary toilet be built by somebody from Abuja? Is that the ideal thing to do? Is that the ideal thing to do? We asked you to represent us, and you are now asking for more time to go in. Are you only interested in re-election, or you are not interested in ensuring that the people that make you up are not interested in development?
Okay,
because
thank you for your comments.
Realize that
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comment very much. Thank you very much for your comments. Now let's move on. It's important to state here again that we have constituents and CSOs, both from the remote locations in Bayelsa State, Delta State, and Edo State, as well as here in the studio with us from the host state, that's Akwa Ibom State, River State, and Cross River State. This is Open Square, and we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we would pass the buck to Honorable Umana for some more responses. I am David Chiedu. Stay tuned. Hello there again. Welcome back to Open Square, a town hall meeting geared towards bridging that gap between constituents and the lawmakers. Open Square is brought to you courtesy of Daria Media. It is a Daria Media production supported by the MacArthur Foundation and Channels Television. We're streaming this event live on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos and on facebook.com/Daria Media, as well as on YouTube at Radio Now Studios. I am David Chiedu. In the studio with me here has been Honorable Luke Anokio. He is the lawmaker representing Etnan Nsiribium Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, and also virtually joining us via Zoom, that is, Honorable Anyeka Umana of Abaketim, Ekpo, Ika Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State. And it's also important to state here as well that we have constituents and CSOs in the host state here, Akwa Ibom State, as well as neighboring states of River State and Cross River, and our remote locations, Bayelsa State, Delta, and Edo State. We've heard comments from one of them at our remote locations in Bayelsa just before the break. I was going to pass the buck to Honorable Umana, but I will come back to Honorable Luke Onofiok to give us his thoughts. Kindly respond to the last comment, and then, of course, we can continue from where you left off earlier, because apparently, you know, you had a lot to educate the constituents and CSOs regarding your job description as a lawmaker. Honorable Luke, kindly continue.
Thank you, Dave. Let me start with what Dr. Tare raised, the issue of constituency project without choice of the constituents. I think the essence of this engagement is for us to learn and then get an input and then deepen our democracy. The 10th National Assembly is coming, and I believe that those who have had the party flag to contest for legislative positions at the National Assembly, at the national level, will take this into consideration. For when they talk about constituency project, for me, let me take myself for instance. I made a prediction into where we are going and where my constituency should be. The duty of a leader is that of a visionary. And then how he translates this vision into reality is what he uses the office he has. And so for me, one of the things I feel that should happen in my constituency is to get my people to be digitally literate. And so most of the things I've attracted to my constituency is what I call the ICT center. We've had one in grammar school, in St. People's Grammar School. And then because the computers are in the houses of the village head, because of issues for security, because they needed to secure the building, we've had the building, I attracted. I did not construct it. I don't know the contract. I mean, I have not had a relationship with the contractor who did it. I did not nominate. I'm not the one who did it. What we only do is to nominate this to the different agencies and say, okay, this is what needs done. And then I have one in Ikoretopo. And then I have one in Ikorokobo, secondary school in Ikorokobo. I think I think Cielo or some civil society group decided to go on a tour of this constituency project in the state, and then they did. And then I found out that personally, I am passionate about healthcare, especially primary healthcare. And I know that the challenges we have today is on the issue of staffing at that primary healthcare. And you cannot talk about staffing without the training of ancillary health workers, community health workers, community health extension workers. And that can only be done in the schools of health technology. And so I went to School of Health Technology in Etienne. I found out that we have a challenge. We don't have we need more of standard laboratory. So I attracted a standard laboratory to School of Health Technology so that it can help the accreditation body to come and then upgrade that school to a college tomorrow. That is my idea as a visionary for my people. If you go to ask the people, I want to tell you, most of the people would say, why not put this in the budget and then begin to talk about putting KK to come and share KK to us. But if you are a leader and a visionary, you will go on things that will benefit the generality of the people. There are classroom blocks, because education is key. There are classroom blocks that have been able to attract to my federal constituencies. I think I asked my SLA to send me the list. He's just sent me the list online. And so this is personally me using myself as an example, and most of my colleagues are doing same in that regard on constituency project. And when you nominate this project, it is the agency, because we don't do it in the National Assembly. This project has to be in an agency and under the Executive Council. So the agency determines the contractor. They determine, because they are the awarding body. They determine the funding. There is no fund. I want to say here specifically, there is no fund given to a member of the House of Representatives and a member of the House of Representatives, a senator for constituency project. The funds are warehoused in ministry, department, and agency. The only thing you do is to nominate that project, and then they go to execute it. And talked about the investment of oil companies. It's very key, because like in my state, I've heard about one major IOCs. One major IOC here have been able to sell some part of his investment in the state. That is ExxonMobil. I read it on the papers. I've not clarified yet, maybe to Seplat. For me, I believe that that is part of what we have been advocating for, local content development. And so if you have a local company coming in to buy off the investment of an IOC, I believe that what we should do is to be able to encourage. That is why I might not be speaking. I'm not speaking for national Nigerian content, local content board. But when things is good in Nigeria, we must commend those who are doing things good. I appreciate the DG of that board, Simbi Wabote, in ensuring that our local companies have a chunk in what is happening. For instance, today we are talking about energy transition. People want to get to renewable energy. Now, have we mastered the technology in gas yet? Why don't we take the benefit of gas utilization? That is why we appreciate some of the amendment we did through the Finance Act to be able to give some incentive to companies who are tax relief to some companies who are in the area of gas, domestic gas utilization. So the local content board is doing well. So what we should do is to be able to talk to this board to be able to get do a whole lot of our supervisory work. Then, sir, one major concern which has been raised by our brother, from Edo State, on the issue of executive bill, which we did not address. The executive, the president or the governor of a state is the visionary. While he was campaigning, he has his vision on where he wants to take the people to, having studied the past and having known where the people are. And so he has the vision. And so he will craft ideas, policies that will help him achieve that vision. Now, we have had so many private member bills passed, so many private member bills in the National Assembly. But if those member bills are not in consonance with what the head of the government, which is the president or the governor, thinks, he's not going to align with you. No matter what you do, if he does not, we know the process of lawmaking. If the president does not give his assent or the governor gives his assent to the bill, it does not become a law. So if you churn out 1,000 bills from private members, if it is not in alignment with what the executive wants, it will not go. Right. And so for the executive, sir, this last point, please just give me 1 or 2 minutes to clear this last point.
All right, quickly.
On the issue of our executive bill, he would do the things that would make for a enabling environment. Like the president just sent a business facilitation miscellaneous bill to the National Assembly. He knows what he wants to do. And so there's nothing wrong if the executive sends executive bill, because it is the head of government. And again, gradually we are losing one war, and I must say it here. Let me not call it war, a battle. There has always been this friction between the executive and the legislature. And the executive is gaining every day. Now the executive has begun to go to do executive orders. And it is only when you take it to court and they are pronounced, it is a pronouncement on court before it can be changed. And the executive, you know the power, they have the power of the purse. Now, we sometimes, what do we actually want from legislators? The 8th Assembly, when the 8th Assembly led by Senator Bukola Saraki and Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara were trying to do some work, the same thing came. Nigerians said, oh, the legislature is impeding the growth of government, is not allowing the executive to execute what they needed to do. And now we have come to a legislator that is having a good relationship with, I am not speaking for the executive, but that is having a good relationship with the executive, led by Senator Ahmed Lawan and Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. And we are saying, oh, the legislature is a rubber stamp. So we have to look at this and balance those two. It's a conflicting interest. But importantly, please, let me speak to our constituent locally. We seem to look at our local situations too and forget about national issues. And that is why when national issues come, we are sometimes drawn aback. When we had the PIB and the National Water Bill, I came back home. I called experts in my federal constituency. I sat them down and said, please give me an expert opinion for me to go to the floor to speak on this. And so the other ones are...
Honorable Luke, let's allow the constituents here to
you.
speak. Thank you very much, Honorable Luke. Very, very insightful, that one. The constituents here present with us in the studio from Cross River State, if we can have your comment. Just tell us your full name and tell us your constituency. Yes, please. Use the microphone.
Yeah, good morning. My name is James Akpan Moses from Cross River State, Abi Local Government. My question here is concerning how the representatives do nominate projects that concerns the people they represent at the federal level. In the sense that, do you consult these people before you make provisions for them, or you just on your own decide what you think is good for them? The next one is, why is it that out of, let's say, 100% of allocation, or when it comes out to the budget, the constituency allocation, you see up to 90% empowerment, distribution of Keke Napep, medical outreach, training of youth, and they don't specify these locations. They say south-south, south senatorial district, northwest. It just generalized without being specific. And how do you say this man is qualified to be empowered with this specific Keke Napep and this one is not? How do you justify that? And again, why is it that when you say construction of an ICT center like that of the Ikot close to your village, which is, sorry, I have to go through Ikot Okobo. Yes, the construction of an ICT center was done in 2020 allocation, and in 2021, it was allocated to be supplied the computers, which there are discrepancies in the supply. According to the principal, I couldn't give straight answers because the supplies were not made properly. What I would say, why will you allocate, say, build an ICT center without taking in consideration security? You see, there are no burglary proofs. The windows are of inferior quality. The construction, the roofing is not quality material. Even the walls, before you commission, they are cracking already. how do you justify that? That's just my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Bielsa. So, Honorable Luke, you're going to help us answer that. He spoke to the issues of consultations with constituents before projects are carried out. He spoke about ambiguities in some projects and also spoke about discrepancies in projects. But we're going to come back to that question. Let's go to Bielsa State, our remote location. Thank you. Go on. Tell us your full name and your constituency.
Okay, my name is Comrade Princess Elizabeth Egbe, and for the purpose of this program, I would have preferred to be known as from the constituents of the common man. But however, I am from a Keremo Sabama constituency. And what I want to start with the comment that the other honorable member made, that he said we are having poverty of knowledge. Poverty of knowledge. I want to start from there. If that is true, I want to also still throw it back to our leaders from the both houses of national assemblies, that they are the cause. If you said we have poverty of knowledge, but there are some key things that needed to be done to increase the awareness level of the people concerning your duties. Have you done it? So I have a few questions. What are the feedback mechanisms that has been set in place by our leaders, both at the National Assembly and both national and the National Assembly, both at the upper and the lower assembly? Then the other one is, do they have constituent office where an ordinary person from your constituents can walk in and get information about what you are doing and also drop back what they want you to do? Do they have it? That's number one. Number two, how frequent? Number three, how frequent are you having engagement with your constituents to to fill their pulse on what is going on? If those are the ways that poverty of mentality can be bridged, if it's not there, I'm recommending that every House of Representative member and Senate should have it, so that there will be a proper communication between the constituents member and their representative, because it's very, very difficult to get access to any of them on any issues. That's the experience that we have had. Now, going back to still on this issue, there is something that happened in the Niger Delta. I've got my colleagues have talked about divestment and the pollution in the environment. I want to build on that. There was something that happened, the oil spillage, the Bonga oil spillage of 2011. That was the most massive singular oil spillage that occurred in the Niger Delta, where Shell himself admitted that they spilled over 40 million barrels of crude oil into the Atlantic Ocean that affected 5 Niger Delta states in Nigeria. What have the legislatures, what have you done in terms of policy and even your oversight function to see that there is a remediation of the environment, and also that the people have been advocating? I am key of that advocation because it affected their livelihood. Up till now, bonga fish, that was the mainstay of the fishermen, have gone on extinction with the like of bonga fish. They are struggling to survive. These fishermen are struggling to survive.
All right.
What have you done in that respect? Because at the same time, a spill occurred in the Gulf of Mexico when Obama was the president of the United Nations. He ordered the cleanup of the Gulf of Mexico. He went there and bathed with his daughter to show all Americans that the place was properly cleaned up, and they have compensated them over and over again. But to the best of my knowledge, not even pure water has been sent to the 5 states that are affected, both community people and fishermen that were affected as a result of the Bonga oil spill.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Luke, let's have you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much for your comments. Honorable Luke, let's have you respond to the constituent from Cross River as well as from Bielsa, both their comments, please.
Thank you very much. I totally respect his views, but I, as a lawyer, I lay a foundation for things. That's a constituency who said he's from Cross River. He should mention his federal constituency in Cross River. How is it from Cross River to come and know what is happening in my federal constituency? And that's one. So he should have spoken about, if he's from Cross River, should have spoken about what he has observed in his own federal constituency. But I am not disputing what he has said in totality. But let me say something here. And I want to quote him. He said the principal, which I will take up with the principal of the school, said there was discrepancy with the supply of the computers. Because it's a very strong comment. No, every constituency project have attracted. I make sure that it is, I monitor it. I make sure that it is done and it is done properly. For instance, the laboratory in School of Health Technology. When CLO went there and then saw that there was no proper work done, I wrote a personal letter to the award agency and they called the contractor back to come and do the work. And so, on the issue of this, nobody has raised a concern about any of this project. Nobody, not even the school. And so their constituency too, the beneficiaries should be able to assist us. If the contractor, like there was a road project I've attracted to my community. I went there and I saw what they did. They just did red aid, and then the next thing they decided to do some graphos, and then water came and washed that away. I came back. I asked my SLA, right, go and video that. Go and give me pictures. And then I have written to Federal Ministry of Works to attract the attention to this. So on this issue raised, I want to say that I will take it into consideration. I will visit the site myself again, because when I did not see them. I'll visit the site again. And then if there are these issues, it is our place to take your input and we'll take it into consideration. Then on the issue of choice, please, during campaigns, I went to 31 wards in my federal constituency. People raise concerns of what they want. That is a basis of need assessment. Okay. During campaigns, to get to the office, they said, oh, this is what we would want. The youth said, this is what we would want. The women said, this is what we would want. The elders said, this is what we would want. For me, that formed the basis of the project I have tried to attract to my own constituency. You cannot do all at a particular point in time. I know that others would come to take
Honorable, if you could kindly respond to the other
So, sir, please, please, let me end. On the issue of constituency project, ICPC and Tracker Nigeria is doing a good work. And every of my projects, I ask Tracker Nigeria and ICPC to be able to look at those projects. If you can't have a moral burden, you can't have a moral turpitude or a moral high ground to challenge a contractor if you have gone to collect anything from that contractor in the work you are doing.
All right. Honorable, kindly respond to the other comment, the lady from Bayelsa State.
Okay, and on the issue of the comments from my sister from Bayelsa, first on the oil spillage. Now, my colleagues from the Niger Delta over time have brought these issues as it affects their federal constituencies to the floor. I might not be able to speak specifically because I don't have the data right now, but I know for one thing, and I want to align with my brother Anyeka Numana, we've always been alert to our responsibilities. We've always brought the issues that bother us. So my colleagues from Delta, my colleagues from Bayelsa, my colleagues from OVA have always brought issues. And it is a pride for us. That is why every member is looking for something to speak as it concerns their member. That's why you see, assuming you don't have opportunity to come by way of matter of urgent public importance or come by way of motion on notice, that is why you see members come through what they call public petition, because they want to bring the issues that need the attention of their federal constituency to the government agencies, departments, and ministries that are responsible.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Luke. Barrister Clifford Thomas, representative of the civil society, your comments, please, very quickly, in about a minute. Thank you very much, because we have to draw the curtains on the program today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to come up and speak, but giving me 1 minute will be an aberration of the protocol. You won't be helping us because civil society actually came here in protest. We were not well aware of a program as important as this. That's why if you check the audience, you don't have the capacity of the full civil society represented, because we would have had at least more than 200 people here to be able to apprise what the legislators are speaking. But all the same, we thank you for giving the legislators an opportunity to interface with the people. And they should not take it as a right because they have failed in actually meeting with their constituents. Aside from Onofio Luke present here, who is a product of civil society, an activist and a lawyer, he who actually appreciates what it means to interface with the people. I think we have very few. We have 10 federal constituencies. How many in Akwa Ibom State? How many of them have been able to sit down with their people, bring the bills, photocopy the bills, paste the bills in your constituency office? Allow your people to discuss the bills. That's why the semantics Onofio is talking about over the Electoral Act is strictly their fault. Whoever chooses to interpret it, however, will be right in interpreting it. And the Nigerian public has interpreted it. The Supreme Court has interpreted it to have been their fault. That they did the legislation without talking to their people. At the end, it actually had a negative impact on them and on Nigerians. They have done a great disservice to Nigerians with that Electoral Act, even though there are some good points they have made. And we must appreciate those good points they have made. I want to also talk about the PR of talking to the public.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister, for joining us.
As I said, it will be a travesty of justice.
We have to wrap up.
If you give me 1 minute.
We have to wrap up.
I have said nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Luke, very quickly in a few seconds because we have to wrap up at studio time, so we have to bring the program to a close.
Yeah, quickly. One, I want to say that the 360 of us in the House of Representatives
Honorable Luke, you've got 10 seconds.
Are doing our best to be able to represent our people well, both in the state and in the South and in Nigeria. Then the other one I want to appeal.
Thank you. We can end it at that, Nigeria. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our listeners at our remote locations in Bayelsa State, Delta State, and in Edo State, as well as here present CSOs and constituents in the host state here, Akwa Ibom, as well as Cross River State and River State. Many thanks for joining us. And thank you very much, distinguished Honorable Luke Onofio. Many thanks for joining us. In absentia, thank you to Honorable Umana for joining us. And special thanks to Daria Media, as well as the MacArthur Foundation and Channels Television for supporting this program. Thank you again to Nigerians watching from all over the world. Again, this has been Open Square, and this is the end of the series of town hall meetings, Open Square, brought to you by Daria Media. Many thanks again for joining us. I am David Chiedu. Bye for now.